Today we're going for a walk along Leytonstone's lost river, the Philley Brook, which rises somewhere here. I have rummaged around in the trees looking for the source, scaring the dog walkers, but kind of drew a blank. But we do know the river rises on what was once Berryfield Farm. Today we know this area as Whip's Cross, which is derived from the family that owned the area, the Phipps family, who literally apparently had a cross on the estate. Today, Phipps Cross, and that's most likely the source of the name Phillebrook, from Phipps to Philly. Had some other kind of really quite interesting names through the years, with different spellings as well. And we're fortunate to be guided today by this wonderful map by Russell Frost, Hooksmith Press, which he's created especially for the occasion. This is one of the walks I'm doing for Waltham Forest Borough of Culture, and each one of them has a bespoke map created by Russell Frost, Hooksmith Press. So this is what we'll be following today. You see the course of the river there, marked with that dotted line. So next we make our way past St.Andrew's Church down to Coleworth Road. So we're just going to go along Coleworth Road for a very short distance from the church and then turn into Hainault Road. And from this corner of Coleworth and Hainault Roads, look, you can clearly see we're looking down into a river valley here with the Phillebrook gurgling away beneath the tarmac. The thing with urban river hunting, seeking out lost rivers, is you've got to kind of read the lie of the land and look for the clues as you go along. Tends to be that the submerged rivers don't get built over most of the time, and if they do, it tends to be with sort of public utilities, maybe churches, schools, things like that, garages. But for most of the way, and hopefully we'll see it today, the Phillebrook is largely free of buildings right on top of it. There are some exceptions though. And look here, you can see the Phillebrook running beside this big block of flats here and through the car park, running across Hainault Road. I'm pretty sure that that is the course of the river there. This first part of the Phillebrook is kind of a bit of a windy road actually. You have to kind of go up and down in a bit of a zigzag if you want to stay true to the course of the river, which of course we do. We turn into Lytton Road here. So we turn off Lytton Road into Wadley Road here, and look, you can see it once again. We're looking down into a clear sort of river valley here. So you can see over there where the river comes through the back of that block of flats here, Ripley Mews, and then it continues across the road and through this new development here, Temple Close. You have to try and imagine when this area was all open fields and farmland. It was dominated by a couple of large estates. Here it was Woolwood Farm on the Woolwood estate, and this development here, which was built after the coming of the railways, was called the Phillebrook estate. But of course at that point the river was running free, but by 1893 it had been culverted as far as the railway pretty much. So again we turn off the high ridge of Lytton Road back down into the river valley here at Esther Road. And again we're looking for signs of where the river crosses the road. You can see it's pretty clear down there, isn't it? Let's go and have a look. By the 1870s, the local authority had realised there was a bit of a problem with flooding along the course of the Phillebrook, so they decided to investigate and see if they could do something about it. The flooding here in Esther Road was so bad that they called it the Doomed Valley. Well, it's pretty clear that the river comes through here behind this iron gate. Where it continues, we have houses which may be part of the reason why there was such a problem with flooding down here. So we now turn from Lytton Road and we turn left around the corner into Waltham Road. The Waltham estate was once owned by Stratford Langthorne Abbey, which was a very powerful institution in the medieval world, founded sometime in the early 1100s. I'll put the date up here on the screen. And then after the dissolution of the monastery, it passed into private hands, and at various times it was owned by notable wealthy people, including the Governor of the Bank of England, Joseph Cotton, which is good timing actually, because it brings us here to where the river passes through. You can see where the river emerges beside this block of flats here, and then crosses the road and goes down King's Passage. This is another one of the places where if you're very careful and you watch out for the cars, that you can hear the river. Very important to look out for traffic when doing this. But down there, gurgle the waters of the Phillebrook. And the Phillebrook continues beneath the pavement here along King's Passage. I've led a couple of walks along the course of the Phillebrook for Waltham Forest Borough of Culture. It's a really wonderful experience to see people discovering Leytonstone's secret river. Another theme you'll see as we follow the course of the river is there are a few allotments along the riverside, and here is one here. I suppose the obvious reason being that it was fairly kind of damp, cheap land, and probably pretty good for cultivation. It's pretty clear the way that the river emerges from King's Passage and then gurgles its way across the road and through the St John's ambulance station. So we turn out of King's Road into what is now Kingswood Road, but was originally Phillebrook Road. So before the building of this enormous road behind me, Phillebrook Road extended along the course of this road here, and this was one of the centres of Leytonstone's artist community. Before the building of this road in the early 90s, Leytonstone had the largest community of artists in Western Europe. It was a really thriving hub, a thriving scene. Of course, the building of the Link Road meant that community was dispersed and many of the houses were demolished all along its course. There was, of course, a famous protest to oppose the building of the road, and some of it took on rather colourful form. In Leytonstone, they formed the independent state of Leytonstonia. In Wanstead, it was Wanstonia. Now, at the top of this lamppost here on Kingswood Road, former Phillebrook Road, we can see one of the artistic legacies of the building of the Link Road, and it's a piece of sound artwork by Graham Miller called M11 Linked. And if you have a receiver, which you can pick up from one of the local libraries, you can walk along the course of the Link Road and hear the voices of the people that lived in these houses.
When I led the guided walk for Waltham Forest Borough of Culture, we were fortunate enough to be joined by artist and filmmaker Ian Bourne, who was part of the Leytonstone artist community. Ian brought along a couple of the headsets so people could listen to Graham Miller's audio recordings.
So we're going to turn off Grove Green Road here and pick up the course of the river in Queen's Road. So here we have the St John's ambulance, where the river runs beneath and crosses the road here. And you can see where it continues down that driveway. Cuts between the houses and skirts around the edge of that new house down there and gurgles on its merry way. We'll return back up to Grove Green Road before turning into Fairlop Road to find the river once more. We'll turn now into Fairlop Road. You could actually miss out this turning to Fairlop Road and continue straight across there down Phillebrook Road. But we're going to go down Fairlop Road today. If you're looking for old images of Leytonstone, you'll frequently come across paintings of Fairlop Road in its early years of being developed. A lovely tree-lined street, and you can see that today its appearance isn't radically different. It still is a really lovely tree-lined street. I would say that's where the river emerges there, in that gap between the houses. There's easily room for another house there, but it's been left vacant. And you can see where it continues across the road here. I think it progresses in this gap between these two houses. And when we continue along Fairlop Road, you can feel yourself climbing a relatively steep hill. And you can imagine when this was open fields with the Phillebrook trickling through the river valley. So we'll turn off of Fairlop Road into Bulwer Road. If you look at some of the earliest maps of the area, dating back to the 1500s, they actually show the shape of this road here, Bulwer Road and Woolwood Road, where a lane went around the edge of the Woolwood, the wooded area on the Woolwood estate, which stretched down from Epping Forest. And the course of this road still follows, or appears to follow anyway, the course of the original lane that led across the estate and around the edge of the wood. It's amazing, isn't it? And now we come off Bulwer Road into Chelmsford Road, which I assume must be named after Lord Chelmsford, who was once a resident at Woolwood House. And the Phillebrook emerges here beside George Mason Lodge and works its way across Chelmsford Road and down beneath that garage there and through the back of another block of flats on the other side there. And we'll continue up Chelmsford Road to Phillebrook Road. And here we have Phillebrook Road. In many ways, if it weren't for the name of this road, all memory of the river might have been forgotten. And here we have a blue plaque to pop star Damon Albarn, who lived in Leytonstone in this house until he was about 9 years old. He attended George Tomlinson Primary School, and there's actually one of his gold plaques that he donated in the reception there. I was fortunate enough to be here the morning that he came to unveil the blue plaque. It was a really lovely event. And here at the end of Phillebrook Road we have the recently revived Leytonstone and Wanstead Synagogue. It's a really wonderful building in there. We were fortunate when we did the lead walk to be given a tour, and it was a really magical experience.
And what happens is we read a portion of this every Saturday, and it's handwritten. So it takes, to write this would take someone about a year. Every letter has to be correct. Every letter has to be perfect. You can imagine something's well over 100 years old. The ink to last that long is quite difficult.
So we turn now from Phillebrook Road into Drayton Road. So this house here is the site of the original synagogue, which was established in the 1930s, and it's now a church. So the Phillebrook emerges here through the car park behind this block of flats, and it wends its way beneath the tarmac over the road and through what is now a building site, which is really curious because I think that was actually a couple of plots of allotments, and now they're actually building over it, which, as you've seen already, is quite a rare thing. And this is one of the places where you can actually hear the Phillebrook. And as you can see, it's a really good idea to stay on the pavement when listening to the Phillebrook, because this is actually quite a busy little road here. So we're going to turn out of Leyton Road here into Southwest Road. I've always felt this little corner here retains some of the rural charm of old Leytonstone. So here we can see the Phillebrook runs between these houses here and then makes its way across Southwest Road and through the allotments on the other side. I don't think it has any connection at all with the river, but I love the fact that we have to go down Avebury Road, site of the famous standing stones. I see these lovely new planters here as a form of tribute to the subterranean waters of the Phillebrook, which continues on, passes beneath the railway bridge. So in 1893, if you look at the Ordnance Survey map, the Phillebrook still ran free and clear above ground from this point onwards, underneath the railway bridge, down across farmland, all the way to the East London Waterworks down in Leyton. By 1904, it had been completely culverted along its entire length and lost beneath the streets of Leyton and Leytonstone. From Scarborough Road, we turn into Grove Green Road and pass here beneath the Barking to Gospel Oak line. Grove Green Road is one of the ancient thoroughfares of Leytonstone. You can see it marked on all the old maps. Particularly recognisable is this particular bend where we have the Heathcote Arms pub. Now named the Heathcote and Star, this was once the site of Grove Farm. I believe some of the buildings, I think the buildings at the back, date back to some of the original old farm buildings. And it's a rather wonderful boozer. Wrote most of my book This Other London in there when it was the Heathcote Arms. Poking through the undergrowth over there, you'll see murals depicting some characters from Star Wars. That's because Stuart Freeborn, the art director who created those designs, lived along here in Grove Green Road. Apparently, he modelled Yoda on his own face. Turn into Pretoria Road, one of a couple of streets in the area named after places in southern Africa, and that would be due to the fact they were developed around the time of the Boer War. And this is where the Phillebrook emerges from underneath the railway bridge, between these houses here, crossing Pretoria Road, and then basically running down Newport Road here for its entire length. What's interesting here is one side of Newport Road. To the right is Leyton, and on the left is Leytonstone. During the 19th century, there were some Paleolithic hand axes and stone implements that were excavated around this area here on farmland. And it's assumed that there was a Stone Age settlement around this section of the river here, which is magical to think of, isn't it? Phillebrook runs underneath the grass here through Sidmouth Park. Very delightful little local park. You'd have thought this would have been one of the places where perhaps the river could have been brought back to the surface. A process which I think is known as daylighting. So here the Phillebrook crosses Leyton Road, once part of an ancient pilgrimage route between London and Waltham Abbey. There was a bridge here and a ford, and Leyton Bridge is mentioned as early as 1454. And the Phillebrook passes through Coronation Gardens. What is today Coronation Gardens was once part of farmland and there were watercress beds. This was opened in 1902 and would have seen the final culverting of the river. By the time Coronation Gardens is built in 1902, the Phillebrook is referred to as an open sewer, which it possibly was by that point because the area was by now heavily urbanised. The population of Leyton exploded after the building of the railway. It went from something like 5,000 to about 120,000 in the space of about 60 years. The Phillebrook is still gurgling away, somewhere beneath this path I think, or perhaps through that border over there. Here we have a statue to the great Laurie Cunningham of Real Madrid in England, one of the greatest ever English footballers, and he started his career here at Leyton Orient Football Club. Leyton Orient Football Club is just the other side of the park here, on the banks of the Phillebrook. There's a delightful little pond here. It's great to see some water in Coronation Gardens, although I don't think it has anything to do with the Phillebrook, although I like the idea that perhaps it draws from the waters of the brook running beneath the ground. And I find it curious that here we have a maze running over the buried stream, and of course mazes are heavily associated with pagan worship, where sometimes the site of springs was marked with a maze. Springs were venerated in pagan worship. Where the Phillebrook crosses Oliver Road, we have Leyton Beach. Surely it can't be a coincidence. And if we look along Oliver Road here, past Leyton Orient Stadium, to those new build houses you can see in the distance, I'll pop an arrow in there. Just off the road there, we have Ossier Way, where a Bronze Age settlement was excavated, clearly on the high ground above the river valley. This land around here was once owned by the brother of King Harold, Tostig, and King Harold himself was a frequent visitor to Leyton. What is now the Leyton and Star pub was once called the King Harold, commemorating the association between the last Anglo-Saxon king of England and this area here. So we turn off Oliver Road now into Dunedin Road, and we're getting close now to the end of the river, the end of our walk. So Rook Holt is one of the ancient manors of Leyton, the Rook Holt, or alternatively the Rock Holt. I'm not sure which of the two is correct. And when they were doing some work here in the 18th century, they discovered tessellated pavements and some Roman burials. And they concluded that a Roman road passed through this area, heading out towards Colchester. And this was, of course, also the site of the Templar Mills, the mills owned by the Knights Templar. Today home to an Asda and a Sports Direct, a B&Q and a Costa Coffee. The Phillebrook terminated somewhere over there near that roundabout, the Leyton Waterworks, where it joined another little stream and eventually ran into the River Lee. And here the motifs continue of urban rivers, allotments, utilities, waste and recycling. Although the Phillebrook was tamed and forced underground, It lives on, shaping the streets in which we live. And if we're really lucky, we may get one final little glimpse of it as it comes above ground very briefly before disappearing once again into its subterranean realm. Thank you so much for coming on this walk with me along Leytonstone's lost river, the Phillebrook. And what a magical stream it is. This is the first of 5 walks that I'm doing for Waltham Forest, London Borough of Culture. So please join me on the remaining 4 walks exploring this wonderful, magical borough.